What is up, and welcome to another edition of the Bruin Bible. Will Decker, your host. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribing the podcast. We are brought to you guys today by our advertisers. Our advertisers are Bell to Bell Fitness, Shea Tor, a realtor out in Arizona, former Bruin alum, and my main man Howard Chang, a realtor right here in Los Angeles. Let's go through them, guys. Bell to Bell Fitness is a boxing gym on the West Coast used by their FIT acronym, Fight Inspired Training. My main man, Tony Gonzalez, was the boxing coach for UCLA for over 10 years. He has built this gym on the West Side to learn how to boxing, stay in shape, and get you all the essentials you need to become somebody that is obsessed with boxing and fitness. Make sure to check it out. Go into Bell to Bell Fitness and say you heard about it from the Bruin Bible, and you're going to get a free session with Tony Gonzalez. So make sure to check that out. Shea Tor, my main man. Shea Tor is a licensed real estate agent in Arizona and a lifelong Bruin. He's a current Wooden Athletic Fund donor and football season ticket holder. When not selling houses or going to UCLA games, he loves to travel the country, checking out different arenas, ballparks, and stadiums. If you're looking to make the move to Arizona or know someone who is, please reach out to our loyal friend, Mr. Shea Tor. His phone number is 602-487-3975. Once again, his number is 602-487-3975. Make sure to check that out. And then the local realtor we got out here, Howard Chang. Howard Chang is a local realtor with the Serene team at eXp Realty. Their team has an office right here in Culver City, though they help clients buy and sell homes all over the LA County and the surrounding areas. Howard and his team do a ton of business and are super in tune with the market, knowing winning strategies to give their clients a competitive advantage. Have amazing vendor referrals, are a one-stop shop for anything real estate, and just provide a ton of value for their clients. Howard and his partner, Kyle Draper, are UCLA alums and a huge fans of the UCLA football and basketball programs. You will often see them at games, tailgating and networking, and staying involved with the UCLA alumni community. They would love to help any fellow alumni with accomplishing their real estate goals. So if you guys have any real estate needs in the LA area, look no further. Howard is your guy. All right, guys, we're going to go into the episode. Wayne Cook here today. Make sure to check it out. We'll be back in just a moment. What is up, Los Angeles? It is Friday, day after the 4th of July, America's favorite holiday. And what more American is it than to talk about the freaking big uglies on the offensive line? ESPN 1090, the mightier Will Decker, your host. To my right, Mr. Jamal Madney, a.k.a. the Madman to those who listen. How are we doing, brother? I mean, it's post 4th of July. Energy is as high as it possibly can be. I feel like the summer in a lot of ways kind of peaks during the 4th of July. Would you agree with that assessment right there?
No question. Thriller, I mean, it's just, it's so great. What a great time of year. And no better than to talk about UCLA football. And of course, I mean, you said it really well. 4th of July, obviously the most patriotic of holidays. It's our nation's birthday. And there's nothing more patriotic than to talk about football and the big uglies up front. You know, I'm reminded, John Madden used to have the Turkey Awards. I really feel like there needs to be something for 4th of July here moving forward. I mean, the hot dog guys, Kobayashi and Chestnut, have had it for over a decade. How come, we got to have something for football here, Thriller, for sure. But really excited to get into it with you on the O-line.
Man, and what a shame it is that Joey Chestnut was not able to compete in the hot dog eating contest yesterday. I mean, the end of it, this is like LeBron's run is like stacked up with Joey Chestnut's dominance, on the hardwood and I guess the paper plate, respectively, if you will. But
the hardwood and the paper plate.
yeah, there's two grounds. They're two grounds for, dominance, if you will. Big Ugly's obviously a term of endearment. No team is great without a great offensive line. And these guys, Madman, let's be very honest. Coming out of spring, we were nervous as can be, because when you look at how this roster shapes out on offense, Ethan Garber's coming back as a quarterback. We know what we can get with him. We saw the highs of him beating USC last year, winning a bowl game. He was kind of on his A game last year as it finished out. We know what these receivers are. I mean, we said last year, I'm going to double down again and make this prediction once more. Deepest receiving group I've ever seen as a fan of UCLA football. Running back rooms led by Deshaun Foster, maybe the last position group you have to worry about as a total. But, I mean, you saw offensive line group in spring. Chaotic is the word that comes up over and over and over again when you look at this unit. But I was so impressed by what Deshaun did in the transfer portal, adding 3 new guys since he's taken over as the head coach. Forgot about this, madman. Michael Carmody coming from Notre Dame wasn't even in spring practice, who had previously committed, to the Chip Kelly era, the end of the Chip Kelly era at UCLA. So we said, hey, we're going to need like 3 linemen to kind of really make this thing hum. And boy, did he do that, man. Let's kind of go through the first 3 offensive linemen. I want to talk about Juan Castillo. I want to talk about the returning lineman that comes down to it. As we have, the cupboard's not completely bare, if you will. But the first guy we got to start with, I think let's go Carmody, man. 6'5", 291 pounds. This guy has 2 starts in his career. And I think if you were looking at that from the surface, you go, man, didn't have a lot of starting experience. What's going on there? The guy who was playing in front of him was Joe Alt, who was like the 5th pick in the draft.
He's kind of good. Yeah.
Decent, right? Decent. And Notre Dame, as it stands, maybe the biggest factory of college football there is. 6'5", 291 pounds. Carmody strikes me as a guy with high upside, former 4-star recruit. Hasn't seen the field a lot, but a guy that could come in at UCLA and really make a difference in year 1 with the Bruins. What do you think about Carmody? Because this goes back to those days where we didn't even know if Chip was going to be on the job or not. It was a very much time in flux with UCLA football. So I think it was kind of forgotten about with everything that went on with the coaching hire and things like that. But I'm very excited for Carmody.
Yeah, Thriller. Carmody, I think, is going to be absolutely terrific. And, just taking it a step back, as you alluded to, when we walked out of spring, Thriller, obviously the last 2 years of UCLA football, we've been kind of in a similar spot coming out of spring where you walk out of there and you're like, ooh, the offensive line is kind of a project. And if you recall, Thriller, 22, the opening game against Bowling Green, it was a rough go that first half. DTR was kind of running for his life, and you really wondered, is this offensive line going to be sustainable enough to be able to put together a really nice season? And they just had such a tremendous growth trajectory in 2022 that by the end of the season, it was sort of a remarkable transformation that was one of the strongest units on the whole team. And I think one of the 10 best improvements of an offensive line from beginning of season to the end of season in all of college football. And I think last year we saw sort of a similar point of departure in spring practice. And I think we were all expecting a same curve, a same evolution, a growth journey. Didn't quite happen last year. I think we can point to a number of things. Obviously, the lack of continuity at quarterback. It just was difficult for that offensive line to get into a rhythm. So we came into 24, Thriller, saying, hey, is this going to take a 22 curve or is this going to take a 23 curve? Going into spring practice. And I think what we saw, Thriller, was an offensive line that lacked size, it lacked depth, it really lacked credibility to be a Power 5 unit, if we're being completely honest. And so we walked out of there saying, look, we have to fortify this position, and we've done that. And starting with Michael Carmody, you said it best, Thriller, at 6'5", 291. I think 2 things really jump to mind for me. One is, even being behind the likes of an elite prospect like Joe Alt, the learning that takes place. You see how an Alt approaches his day-to-day, what he's doing in the weight room, what he's doing in the film room, what his technique is with the center of gravity, with his hands, how he's really emphasizing his craft. And then number 2, you're in a program like Notre Dame that's so elite, but also plays such a similar style of power football that you're going to see week over week in the Big Ten. And they got their big backs in terms of like Estime last year, Kyron Williams years past. That's a power football running team. And so Carmody's going to walk into a very seamless situation, being at a very elite level and being very exposed to a similar style of play at Notre Dame, and come in. And I expect him, Thriller, to be a starter and to be a really high impact player for UCLA this year. I'm very excited about Michael Carmody.
Carmody, I think, has such a high ceiling for what he can project there with, like you said, coming from a factory of offensive linemen. We talked about Joe Alt. What about Quentin Nelson? What about Mike McGlinchey's? What about these guys? Blake Fisher was drafted in the 3rd round this year. Notre Dame has arguably been O-line U for the last decade plus within college football. So getting any kind of DNA from that group is a big, big get for UCLA. Let's kind of do these 2 in tandem, as they were 2 guests of the Bruin Bible. Ruben Unige coming from the Houston Cougars. Love this dude. 6'5", 310 pounds, a little bit more meatier than Carmody. He's got 20 pounds on him. And what I like as well, 19 career starts, was starting opposite of a tackle at Houston, Patrick Paul, that got drafted in the NFL draft this year. And then, I mean, let's talk about it. Alani Makahali, this guy, sweetest guy on earth. Jay Toyia's cousin, he let me know after the show occurred. So kind of a family affair going on at UCLA. They're going to be practicing head-on-head with each other, trying to rip each other's head off, what I love. But Mac Ellie started all 13 games last year for UNLV, which is a really, really good offense. And I just think he's going to be your classic run grader, your run blocker that's going to open up the gaps and holes that TJ Harden and Keegan Jones are going to love back there. Talk to me about Unije and, Makahali, because I think there's a lot to like with both these dudes. Starters, experience, guys that have been out in the D1 football field and have made an impact.
Thriller, I think you said it best. I mean, we'll start with Unije. You said it, that 310, big, and that 20 pounds, Thriller, in offensive line coordinates. I mean, that's like dog years, when you talk about those 20 pounds. I think Unije, the thing that struck me, Thriller, when we spoke with him earlier in the offseason, he's got an NFL mindset. His whole thing was, even at Houston, I was thinking about making the jump, immediately, as soon as I was eligible after sort of a redshirt year two. And I decided to kind of come back. I had some injuries. And so, but his mindset is very much, how do I get to the NFL? And you love that, because I think he's going to be a sponge with Juan Castillo, everything that he can do. And you just, the 19 starts, Will, are just so paramount. I mean, it's the equivalent of 2 seasons. Between his size, all the tools that he has, I actually love the wingspan there. It's really hard to get around Unije if you look at the film. And then just the mindset that he's got. He wants to make it to the NFL. And I think he's going to really absorb everything that Juan Castillo has to say. I think another guy to watch out for that I think is going to make a huge impact. And then Machiavelli, you got to love him. You said it best, Will. Obviously, the lineage with Toya and moving forward. I think what's very fascinating here is when you talk about body of work with an offensive lineman, all you have to say is, how well did that person's quarterback do? Right? I mean, when you think about even with a smaller school, Machiavelli, 13 starts at UNLV. Where is the UNLV quarterback from last year going now, Will? He's Jordan Maeva. He's going across town to Lincoln Riley. So the fact that Maeva had such a great year that it caught the attention of one of the top quarterbacking minds in college football is really a testament to that offensive line and giving him protection and allowing him to make plays. And Machiavelli was at the center of that. So I think you're looking at 3 guys that are going to be starter quality for UCLA and make a huge impact. And Machiavelli could do that for Maeva. Think about what he can do for a veteran in Ethan Garbers and be able to give him time and allow him to pepper it to all the weapons. So lots to be excited about with all 3 of these guys.
And then just another depth piece they added, Akinshilo, Olu Akinshilo, coming from Iowa State. Was originally born in Nigeria, moved to Lawndale area as a young kid, played high school and junior college out there, went to Iowa State, and then transferring to UCLA. So you add 4 bodies. And, the offensive line, it had its struggles. It was a little concerning at times. But you bring back 3 guys that have starter-like experience. I mean, Spencer Holstein just started 40-plus games at the college football level. I don't think a lot of it was his fault last year. I think he was pretty, solid. He's the kind of one piece you can hang your hat on when it comes to the offensive lines. This guy, really makes a difference on the line. We knew his Big Ten pedigree coming from Purdue a year ago, was highly rated there, was highly rated once again coming to UCLA. Josh Carlin made 13 starts at the guard position. And Garrett DeGiorgio, a little bit leaner on the offensive line, as we've talked about with the Carmody frame, but let's be honest, this guy hasn't missed a game in the past 2 years, 26 starts to his name. That stuff matters. That matters when trotting out to a new conference. You want people that have been in those situations, that have been in those game-like environments. Talk to me about the returning pieces, because we got a lot of great players, man, but the one piece that has been very, very underwhelming is the center position, man. And it's been really hard to find a replacement for Duke Clemens, who is arguably the most irreplaceable player on the roster coming from last year.
Yeah, no, Thriller, you said it best. Holstein is definitely the anchor of this team, and just given all of his Big Ten pedigree as well, I mean, he's the leader of that unit and is going to have to sort of carry that team, both in terms of on the field, but also in terms of off the field leadership and behavior. So I love what I'm seeing there with Holstein, but I think bringing these 3 guys in, I think is going to push Holstein as well to take his game to another level, and I think it's going to do really well. DeGiorgio and Carlin, Will, I think a lot of great experience. I think they're going to be kind of in the fight of their lives here with the likes of Carmody, Unije, and Macchiahelli. I think it's going to be fascinating to see. Those are 6 guys. You add a couple more depth pieces. You're 7-8 deep now at the offensive line. Only 5 play. We haven't really addressed completely the fortification of the center. So you're kind of looking at 4 guys, 8 guys for 4 spots. So I think it's going to create a really nice competitive battle here over the course of the summer leading into the end of August. And I'm very, very excited to see it. And I think, Will, at the end of the day, if you can get 3 quality pillars up front, and then you can kind of rotate the other 2 pieces, you're in a really good spot. And I think we feel like Holstige is one of those anchors. And now the question is going to be some combination of Unije, Carmody, perhaps DiGiorgio. Who's going to emerge as pillars 2 and 3 to really fortify this unit? And I think it's going to be really fascinating to see.
Let me pin this up to you, because traditionally the most experienced and most talented player on the interior of the offensive line would move to center in this scenario that hasn't had it. Would you be okay with Spencer Holstige potentially going to center and taking snaps with a Macchiahelli coming in and Josh Carlin, maybe competing with the likes of a, Akin Shiloh for those other guard spots? Is that something as a UCLA fan you could say, hey, I would feel comfortable with this? Or would you want to keep Holstige, who maybe his best position is guard, but he would be best for the offensive line if he went to center?
It's a great question, Will. And I think that Holstige, let's not forget this guy was a 2-time academic All-American in the Big Ten as well. This guy has got an incredible amount of intelligence and an incredible amount of feel for the game. Who would you feel most comfortable as being your center, as really being kind of the captain in so many ways of the timing and the cadence of offensive plays? You would want that to be Spencer Holstige. And the question is, obviously it's a very different position, but he's a guy with the right level of experience, the right level of pedigree, and the right level of intelligence to be able to do it in a way that I don't know if I see anybody else can on that unit. And I think if you can have Holstige be your anchor and really create a bond between Holstige and Garbers, and then you've got the Unijes, and you've got the Carmodis and the Macchiahellis rounding out that offensive line, I think that's where we need to go. Because at the end of the day, Thriller, it all comes down to cadence. And Garbers is so special, but he's so dependent on timing. We saw this last year, right? Like when the timing broke down, the offense kind of broke down. Garbers, he's a mobile quarterback. He's an athletic quarterback, but he's not a DTR. He's not one of these guys that's going to be dynamic outside of the pocket. He needs to have some pocket structure to be able to be effective. And I think if you are weak at the center position, just think about you're sort of always off from millisecond 1 on your plays. You want to be able to have your best offensive lineman be your center. And I think it's Holstige. I think it's a phenomenal point, Will. And I would be very much in favor of Spencer Holstige being the center for this team moving forward.
Yeah, he's competing with the likes of Sam Yoon for the starting center spot. If that is something the UCLA offensive line group chooses to do. We went to a lot of open practices in the spring, and it was very fun to just watch different groupings. The offensive line itself was, not exactly ideal at times, but what I can say is I came away very impressed by the likes of Juan Castillo as the offensive line coach. High energy guy, great track record. It seems like Martin Jarman and Deshaun were kind of working hand in hand, where it's like, how can we get guys who have worked with the best to come to UCLA? We obviously know Bieniemy was a Andy Reid disciple. Juan Castillo, very much in the same conversation as that. Helped develop, Hall of Fame players, future Hall of Fame players such as Jason Peters, Jason Kelsey. I mean, who are some bigger brother names in the NFL than the Kelseys right now? So you have that kind of feather in his cap. Great story as well. Came from a small, Texas town, kind of earned everything he got in the coaching world and found his way to the NFL and made impacts in the highest regard. Is just doing kind of as a place he wants to retire at, it feels like, with UCLA. The drills were very different. They were very much more high intensity drills, which I loved. I love the urgency because that was the group we needed to be the most of. What is your initial takeaways from Juan Castillo? Because granted, it was spring practice and the play was inconsistent, but I liked everything I saw on paper from our new O-line coach.
Will, you said it really well, and it was just a very vibrant energy at spring practice this year that was very different from years past. I mean, obviously, it started with Eric Bieniemy just kind of setting the tone, and it felt very Denzelian in Remember the Titans with Eric Bieniemy. I mean, it was just fire and brimstone left and right, profanities right and left, that came with the fire and brimstone. And then you saw Deshaun really kind of being that sage with the wisdom, and kind of going into guys' ears and kind of giving a whisper, giving a pointer here and there, whereas Bieniemy was kind of the big personality and the big show. And Castillo was a little bit of both at times, and what was so fascinating the last couple of years, Will, is you said it, the preparation in the offensive line was very methodical. It was going from less intense drills to more intense drills to ultimately then having the scrimmages and the 11 on an 11 scenario. This spring, Will, I mean, it felt like he was a hit trainer. I mean, it was high intensity interval training with the offensive line, doing a ton of leg work. They did a lot of with the pads, a lot of drills back and forth, where you got also a sense that he wanted to sort of surprise his unit. They weren't really sure what was going to happen next and jump them into very high intensity situations, which quite frankly, Will, is what realistic football is. You're in very high intensity situations from an offensive line perspective for very short periods of time. So I think he's really preparing these guys for life on the field in real game situations. I loved what I saw. I think he's a tremendous developer of talent. And what I also loved was there was a true meritocracy on the field. You could tell. Look, the offensive line was incomplete in the spring, and it was lacking the talent necessary to really be credible in the Big Ten. He treated every guy the same. He demanded excellence from every guy in the same way. His demeanor was consistent across the board, and it was all about journey and development. We were hearing those words on the field a lot in terms of this isn't about necessarily a destination. It's the journey to be better with every rep, with every drill, with every practice, with every day. So just walked away wildly impressed with Juan Castillo. Will, he's absolutely the right guy for the job. I think he complements this staff extremely well. And I think we're headed not just for sort of 1 year of improvement with the offensive line, but I think we can get to a place where this is going to be a consistent factory year over year where you come to develop with some of the best coaches in the country.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch this play out as we get closer and closer to fall camp. Guys, we took a little bit of a hiatus. I know it's been a little chaotic in past weeks. Don't worry. We're going to be back 2 times every single week, plus the radio show we've got on Fridays. It was travel time for me. Madman is out here saving the world in Washington, D.C., doing things up in Seattle. We got a lot of different stuff going on, but we always promise you guys, nothing is more important to us than giving the viewers a great show, and we're doing that as well as we can, guys. So thank you guys for tuning in. Please continue to like and subscribe. Thank you guys for listening on ESPN Radio 1090 The Mightier. Will and the Madman coming live for UCLA. We are out, guys. Have a great and safe weekend in Southern California.